Joining us now, NBC News White House correspondent and the co-host of MSNBC's The Daily Rundown, Savannah Guthrie. Hey, Savannah.
Good morning, Willie.
You guys were
and
up,
everyone else.
Yeah, we got a big crew with you this morning. You guys were up late at the White House last night as the president was meeting. Don't say that. You're supposed to.
I mean,
you
it's not me.
This,
Yeah, no. I was just thinking about those number crunchers. You know, they were here at least until midnight. So I don't know if the government is going to shut down, but they might after these working around the clock hours. And you know, I don't really have a strong sense of where this is going. I mean, what's interesting, Willie, is actually some of the same people I usually talk to and get a sense of things. People are kind of quiet today. And one interpretation of that is that people just want to let the appropriators and let the negotiators negotiate, and maybe they're trying to ratchet down some of the, you know, public recriminations in the hopes of getting a deal. But my sense still is that this could go either way and that the threat of a shutdown is real.
And how concerned is the White House right now if they're handicapping this? I mean, he's had them now over twice. Apparently, the president might have them over again today. Do they see hope?
Yeah, I think they're concerned about it, really concerned about it. And over the course of this, officials have been extremely frustrated by this because the way they look at it is we're just at this point now a matter of a few $1 billion apart in how much to cut in spending. And the Democrats and the White House feel they have come halfway, maybe even more than halfway. They think this few $1 billion for last year's budget in the context of a $3.5 trillion deficit is really, they don't understand why this has turned out to be Armageddon in terms of a showdown. And of course, there are these bigger fights looming with next year's budget, with raising the debt ceiling. So there's a lot of frustration. You know, I think they're hopeful that somehow cooler heads will prevail and everybody can get a deal. But, you know, John Boehner's got a really difficult problem on his hands as well. He's got to get his Republican conference in line behind any deal. And for a lot of, particularly the new members, compromise is kind of a bad word. They want these spending cuts. They don't want anything short of what they've got.
Ed Rendell.
Savannah, leaving the number aside, are the Republicans ready to give up the social stuff that was in H.R. 1, like taking money away from Planned Parenthood? But if they don't give that up, I don't ever see the Senate approving that. I think we're in for a long haul.
You know, Governor, I think you put your finger on an issue that, it's my understanding, is very real in these negotiations. We talk a lot about the numbers and can they get to the magic number that will produce a breakthrough. But these policy riders you mentioned, which are these provisions that are part of the House bill that got passed with the $60 billion in cuts, things like defunding Planned Parenthood or limiting the EPA. There's a whole range of these policy riders. These are very important to the Republicans. These figure very prominently into the discussions. Ultimately, a deal could break down along those lines. It wouldn't be about the number. It would be about the rider. So I think that's very much a live issue and a space to watch. And Speaker Boehner's been talking about those policy riders all week. So this is very important to the Republican conference, and it's unclear how you compromise on those.
Nora, it's interesting to look at the NBC Wall Street Journal poll that came out just yesterday against the backdrop of this conversation. Congressional job approval is at 20%, which is actually like a little lift for them. But the president, it's like up 2 points, I think. Yeah. But look at President Obama's numbers, 49%, still hovering right around that 50% mark, Nora.
Yeah, and I think what was fascinating is that the president appearing in the briefing room so late last night, I think it was around 10:45 after this meeting, and the president's still talking about those very narrow differences. Savannah, I'm curious, since you're there, you know, how you see the White House team sort of navigating this politically. I thought it was fascinating to see the president yesterday sort of talk about his own party in like the third person. I mean, is there a sense that they're trying to appear kind of above it all?
I think that's clear, and I read the same thing you're referring to. One of the papers observed that the way that, I think it was Jeff Zeleny, the New York Times, observed that, you know, in some ways the president refers to Democrats as though they're some other entity, right, and not, he doesn't associate himself with the Democrats. I think, and we talked about this earlier this week, anytime the president seems like the guy who can come in and be the reasonable guy and, all right, these two parties are fighting and can't we just all get along? Let's get a compromise. I mean, you heard that tone yesterday. We actually, last 2 days, sometimes I kind of think of it as like the disappointed parent routine. You know, yesterday he said to this town hall, How many of you here are married? You know how it is in marriage. One person doesn't always get his or her way. Well, that's how it is in the American family. So the president very much is trying to occupy this space as the person of reason, the person who's going to eat some stuff he doesn't want to eat in terms of cuts, but that ultimately wants to get a deal and get the people's business done. That's the space President Obama and his political advisors want him to occupy. And
of course, you sit next to Chuckles all day, and he's our polling expert.
Yes. But, thank you for using his proper name.
But of course, the polling is the Republicans, saying they support sticking it out. The Democrats want the compromise. And then, of course, the all-important independents, which is the number I always look at in our own polling, said that 66% want Republican lawmakers and others to find compromise. So the independent, that's that pragmatic middle that so many people say, where's the pragmatic middle in all this politics? But the independents want sort of the grown-up. They want compromise. They want people to sit down and figure out how to work this out.
Hey, Pat,
that's right. And Nora, you're not the only one who's looking at the independents. I mean, that's through the White House political shop. That's where the action is for them as well. They know that to be the case. I cannot play Chuck Todd on TV, but I'll tell you one thing about the poll, which is really interesting. Our poll sort of apportioned blame among the parties. 37% blaming the Republicans for a shutdown, 20% blaming President Obama, another 20% blaming congressional Democrats. So there was blame to go around. But one thing our pollster told us was that in the context of the 95 and 96 shutdowns, before the shutdowns actually happened, they were getting similar numbers where the blame seemed to be spread out equally. But after the shutdown actually happened, that dynamic changed, and that's when the Republicans started to get blamed. And the pollster also said this was also very fluid. It would kind of change day by day. So the point is, it's the uncertainty. Nobody knows if the government shuts down, who will pay the price politically?
Hey, Pat, you've been in the room for these conversations. What can the President of the United States do at this point? You have two sides that don't seem willing to budge. What should his role be? What can it be?
I get the sense watching this, I'm just surprised that the Democrats haven't said flat out, no, we've given enough, go ahead and do what you want. I think the president wants, and the Democrats seem to be more fearful of a shutdown than the Republicans do, who are coming with this continuing resolution. Savannah, let me ask you this. We've heard about, and it's obviously true, the Tea Party really got a blowtorch on John Boehner, and he can't back down. But what is the left wing of the Democratic Party doing to the president, who's already walked up to $33 billion in cuts, and Boehner's forcing him to go closer to $40 billion out of the $60 billion? It looks like a Republican victory already, and they're pushing for. What's the left wing of the Democratic Party doing?
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the oddities. First of all, the progressives, the left wing of the Democratic Party, they are disappointed. I mean, they think that the president and the Democrats on the Hill did kind of give away the store. I mean, you got to step back a couple months. This $33 billion figure, which we know the White House and the Democrats are willing to accede to, that's the same figure that Paul Ryan, the House Budget Chair, initially proffered. So I think a lot of Democrats are left on the left side of the party are feeling disillusioned about the Democrats and the president's negotiating skills, feeling like, wait a minute, what compromise? You gave away the whole store. But that's the irony, because if that's the case and the Democrats think, gosh, we really got a raw deal, how is it then that Speaker Boehner can't sell it as a victory to his conference? And, the president said that very thing to him in the Tuesday meeting to Boehner. Look, you have $33 billion in cuts. Go sell it. Tell your caucus you won, and let's get a deal.
All right, Savannah Guthrie rattling off poll numbers in a Chuck Toddian fashion this morning. Very, very impressive.
That's the highest compliment you could pay.
I know it is. Savannah, thanks. You can catch Chuck and Savannah on the Daily Rundown at 9 o'clock Eastern this morning on MSNBC. Coming up a little bit later, Bravo's Andy Cohen will join us here on the set. And up next, a first look at this week's issue of Time Magazine with managing editor Rick Stengel. We'll be right back on Morning Joe, brewed by Starbucks.